Hello, and welcome to episode 16 of What If Civilization Started Over. In the last episode, we saw a massive war that basically led to the collapse of Libya. So if you didn't see that, then go watch it. But for now, we're gonna get right into episode 16. And this episode is going to start in East Asia, and most of the episode is going to take place in East Asia. I'll talk about the rest of the world a little bit, but mostly we're going to be focusing on East Asia in this one. And the first thing that happens is that the two Koreas are going to war. And this is going to be quick because North Korea is the much, much older Korea. But if you look at the ideologies, these guys are the light brown religion, whereas North Korea is the dark orange religion. I don't know what I've been saying. So, yeah. Basically, North Korea tries invading into South Korea. And they're actually doing really well because South Korea is weaker despite having a lot more people. And by the way, neither is very populated. But after this, Yellow Valley, I think I call them, will start an invasion of North Korea, which allows South Korea to stop them, and eventually they will divide up North Korea between themselves. And just like that, North Korea is gone. Okay, something I said would happen in the last episode, and I wasn't lying, is that Japan wants to unify all of Japan, and the last target they have is Hokkaido. And this will actually go surprisingly quickly because there's stuff. This needs to happen before the rest of the stuff in this episode happens. So basically they will invade into Hokkaido, and they're actually doing well at first. But Hokkaido, basically first they retreat all of their troops off of here, and so these guys are like, hey, we won, but we still want to get Hokkaido, like, fully out of here. And then Hokkaido, if we look at the ideologies, Hokkaido is a theocracy like these guys, but these guys are a monarchy. So Yellow Valley in South Korea will start helping Hokkaido with this. That's why Hokkaido withdrew, because they didn't want to lose that many troops while they weren't being supported. And now this combined army will start marching their way through Japan. And they'll get about halfway through before they actually face pretty severe resistance, I'd say. And at this point, things start to slow down a lot. I'm going to zoom into Japan. Korea will try and fail to make a landing in Japan. They'll capture a few islands, but not even land on Kyushu. And this is a major embarrassment for Korea because they did just win a war against the other Korea, but now they're sucking. This major city has been captured finally, as efforts are tried to be made to encircle this city, but they fail, as a massive victory in a battle forces Hokkaido as well as their allies' troops to be pushed back, and they also are forced to withdraw from this island as the Japanese military starts kicking them out. And Kyushu has a new strategy, which is to start pushing towards like this bay area to hopefully isolate Tokyo and get them to quit, as Hokkaido really doesn't want to abandon this front, but Korea and Yellow Valley basically evacuate their troops, leaving Hokkaido stranded as a lot of their troops die. And at this point, they kind of start beefing with their allies, and this will allow for basically these two withdraw their help from Hokkaido as Hokkaido's entire mainland falls. And a landing is made in Sakhalin by Yellow River Valley, who annexes it, as well as the northern half of Sakhalin, while Japan will take the rest of Japan, and they will also take their islands back from Korea, who was still occupying them, but didn't really care about them anymore because they had no reason to occupy them. And just like that, Hokkaido has been conquered. And Japan will actually do something interesting. They want to show that they are for all of Japan, not just Kyushu, so they will move their capital from there, and they will move it to Tokyo. Actually, no, they'll actually move it to this city because it's like the most defended from the ocean, so that it's more central within their country. This monarchy here that broke away from Yangtze kind of wants to take over all of Yangtze and like become the new Yangtze state. And so they will start their invasion into Yangtze, and neither of these two states will do anything about it. And Yangtze is really weak because they never really fully healed from the collapse that caused all these states to break away from them or take land. And so they will fully be annexed, but I'm actually going to keep their old color because I liked it better, and just for continuity's sake. So Yangtze is now a monarchy, and it is the monarchy that was centered here. Yangtze then immediately turns around and starts an invasion westward into yet another theocracy, taking the capital of the theocracy as they start to crumble. And this is where things start to go towards a bigger war. This theocracy, what do I call this country? I guess I'll call these guys East India. No, East India exists. I'll just call these guys Northern Burma. North Burma will start their own invasion into this country, but they are very obviously cooperating with Yangtze, as they kind of obliterate this country, who will be forced to surrender because look at the land they have left. So this is another country. This is the fourth country that I've erased off the map this episode in East Asia. So you can see a lot of countries are being erased off the map. But in religion, something that interesting that has been happening is that this dark green religion has started to spread throughout. Originally, what were the original lands of this monarchy, simply because monarchies actually allow for freedom of religion. And so this dark religion had spread, and this dark green religion teaches about stuff that really appeals to these guys over here because they were going through such a hard time, and when you're going through a hard time, you're more willing to convert religions. And so pretty much the entire East converted as soon as they got conquered. And then the monarch of this country will convert to this religion, which makes things even worse. But his son makes things even worse than that, and that's what's going to start the main conflict of this. Because the son will convert this entire country into theocracy. He's like, there's not a very clear divide between monarchy and theocracy, so he's not like saying, I hereby declare this country is now a theocracy. No, he's just like implementing theocratic measures into the country. Very quickly, the whole country will convert. They were already on the verge of converting, but now they fully convert. And this is going to cause so much alarm in these four countries because not only did they just lose Japan, they just lost Yangtze, which was literally the country that converted them to theocracy. And these four orange countries feel like they're losing to the dark green religion, which now has four things over here. And so the leader of Yellow River Valley, which is the most powerful of all four of these countries, will declare what's essentially a crusade against specifically North Burma and Yangtze, but they wouldn't mind also going after Vietnam and South Burma, as well as maybe India. The two other theocracies of the same religion, they immediately jump on, and actually for now China will sit out. So like the loss of Japan was important to, the reason that it had to come first is because that like influences their decision making. Anyway, Yangtze and North Burma are going to be invaded, as Korea will also land troops. And Yangtze is strong, but they're not that strong. And North Burma is honestly no match for Mongolia. Like, this is not a very difficult thing. Mongolia is not that strong either, but North Burma is quite weak. And India, although North India and North Burma are different sects of the same religion, North India just kind of wants North Burma back, so they will start their own invasion of North Burma. So North Burma is losing here, they're losing in the north, they're just not having a good time overall. Also, this happened probably way before any of the other stuff I said, but I feel like way more of this land would be explored, so now it is. Or conquered, not explored, it's already been explored. Right, back to the crusade. Right now the Crusaders are doing very well, as they, really, like, they never really stood a chance. Yangtze was really weak after having fought those wars, and same with North Burma. But eventually both of the states will actually surrender early, because they want to basically regroup, and try again. So let's see what happens. And this is the new thing. So basically these guys were, North Burma and Yangtze were forced to spit out all of the countries they had recently eaten, and so now they're looking a lot weaker. And religion-wise, this guy is basically, this is kind of China's doing. China wanted these guys to be this sect of the religion because they are kind of forcibly converting a lot of new people to the orange religion from scratch. And so this is the actual amount of the land that is the actual religion. And these people are kind of willing to convert back because they're basically told that they fell for a cult or something like that. Okay, so with that, we are done with the first crusade, but it is only the first of many crusades. Because only about a decade later, the Yellow River Valley will call for a second crusade. And this time, they want to, once and for all, get rid of Central Yangtze, East Yangtze, Central Yangtze, West Yangtze. They want to get rid of this country and restore it to being the orange religion. And this time, because they set up this state here as the bright orange religion instead of the pale one, they are going to get China to join in. So it's going to be extremely quick because China is the most powerful country in the region, despite Yellow River Valley being slightly more populated, I think. China is stronger. They also have the Philippines and Borneo, so that's also helping them out. But mostly on their own, China's going to just kind of cripple this country. China could definitely take this country on their own. But Yellow River Valley will jump in right at the end, and pretty much none of the other countries do anything. And something that's going to anger especially Yangtze, but also kind of North Burma. Well, this is North Burma, like Western Yangtze. Something that's going to anger both Eastern and Western Yangtze is they don't get any land out of this, despite being the ones who kind of feel like they deserve the most land. As instead, China and Yellow Valley will divide the country up between themselves. But now, some bad stuff is going to happen here, which is that miraculously, this green religion is going to disappear from China. And then, miraculously, again, the same thing is going to disappear from Yangtze Valley. I don't know what's going on. And then, once again, the same thing is going to happen here. Although, another thing that happens in Western Yangtze is that the light orange religion disappears. And, as like kind of because of that, in these two countries, the dark orange religion is going to disappear, which is weird, for sure. Miraculously, East Asia is once again fully orange religion. That's crazy. But, in retaliation for that, these three countries will miraculously lose their entire populations of anyone who isn't their religion. And kind of in retaliation for both of those, North India will basically require everyone to be the lime religion. And now everyone's happy because everyone's part of a country that's their religion theocracy. Yeah, no, like, this was basically a series of genocides occur. Like, there's no way to sugarcoat it. I mean, there is, but I'm not going to. A series of genocides basically occurred here. And in Indonesia, let me just... Yeah, so, things are not going very well in East Asia, unless you like theocracy and already lived in the correct religious theocracy for you. But something bad is going to happen for Japan, which is that a new religion will develop. And this religion, I feel like the only distinction I need to make between religions is whether or not there are prophets. This religion has prophets. And a lot of people of the orange religion were actually killed in Yellow River Valley. Well, magically, a new country is going to pop up here. I'm going to stop pretending like this is magic. Yeah, a bunch of the refugees are going to go here. And 4 new cities are going to pop up, and they are going to confederate into a new government, which means we actually have a new ideology as well. You guys are going to be a theocracy as well. But they are going to be an orange religion theocracy, as in bright orange. Because all of those people who fled there are the bright orange religion. Anyway, back to Japan. They kind of have a new religious revival as they completely convert to a new purple religion, which I'm just going to make the same color as monarchy because I'm lazy. New purple religion will basically revive through Japan because they realize, hey, the orange religion people are doing some bad stuff. And the monarch basically enforces this. And Japan's not a theocracy. I'm not going to color them in as a theocracy, but they are a state religion monarchy like Persia, where it's a monarchy. They don't claim to have like religious governance or anything, but if you are not the state religion, then you could be persecuted. Just because that country does not have to be a theocracy to have religious persecution, as Japan is showing. Uh, and so obviously, these guys are not too jazzed about that. And so now the Second Crusade will be launched against Japan this time. And it will be started by Korea, as they will basically be spearheading this, as the Yellow River Valley doesn't really want to do this. Actually, this is the Third Crusade, isn't it? Yeah, this is the Third Crusade. But Korea will be landing troops on Japan, and they'll actually do really well at first. But once the capital starts to be threatened, and yeah, let's turn off ideologies. Also, Kyushu and Shikoku were taken, and once the capital starts to be threatened, Japan calls in their troops and like rallies up an army, and a crazy thing happens, which is that Kyushu will kind of overthrow their Korean masters who were occupying the island, as overnight, pretty much all of the Korean occupying forces are killed by civilians. And there weren't that many occupying forces in the middle here because they were supposed to be able to retreat if there was an uprising. And very quickly, the front line is pushing forward very slowly here. But southern Japan kind of catches up to this, and these guys are all slaughtered, as South Korea's, or just Korea, has most of their entire military killed. And Korea's like, hey, we are now getting invaded by Japan, so can you guys, like, help us? And, there's now animosity between the southern orange religion countries and the northern orange religion countries. But one country that is willing to help Korea out is Yangtze, because they don't like Japan. And also they kind of help create Korea. So Yangtze will send troops to these Japanese islands as well as onto Kyushu. And they're surprised by how easily they're able to take it because Korea got slaughtered. But then the exact same thing that happened in Kyushu to Korea happens to Yangtze because there wasn't that much coordination. Korea is actually able to push Japan mostly off of the peninsula, but there's still a little foothold over here. But yeah, these guys are slaughtered. And at this point, both of them are like, hey, Yellow River Valley, can you help us? And Yellow's like, fine. So Yellow will send massive numbers of troops. And they will not decide to invade Kyushu because they know what happens when you try to invade Kyushu. Also, these islands are still occupied by Yangtze, so that's nice. Instead, they will invade into Hokkaido, which is the region that is like the least wanting to be the purple religion. And they will just fully annex Hokkaido, and it's way too similar in color. Give me a sec. Okay, I'm actually going to make Japan the color that their religion is, just because it'll be easier to see the invasion versus the actual territory. So, as I was saying, Yellow River Valley has annexed Hokkaido. Like, so Japan will now be invading into Yellow River Valley's territory if they take Hokkaido. But they are invading in the north, which is the less loyal region. But because of this, the south is able to make a huge army, and they basically are able to start repelling Yangtze, who's like significantly stronger than Japan. Honestly, Japan on their own could probably still beat both of these two countries in a war, but not Yellow. So it's actually pretty impressive how they're doing this, but eventually they run out of steam. They have lost their force on Korea, and at this point, they're very quickly, like within a year, this land is taken. The next year, the capital is taken, and it looks like southern Japan is going to be taken next. But then these guys, which I guess I'll call Siberia for now, even though their capital is in Manchuria, these guys launch, like, not even an invasion. Like, it would be weird to call it an invasion. These guys launch not even an invasion. It would be weird to call it an invasion, but a raid into Yellow River Valley's territory. And then they realize, hey, Yellow River Valley just doesn't have their army here at all. And so they just keep taking it. This city falls and kind of is erased from the map, so you can imagine what they did there. But actually, they didn't kill those people. Instead, they killed the adults, and then they brought all the children to found a new city over here. So that's kind of awful. But honestly, like, Yellow River Valley's entire army is in Japan. Or not their entire army, but a good portion of it is. And these guys have kind of, like, fully assimilated this territory before Yellow River Valley's like, hey, maybe don't take Sakhalin, because that's kind of the triggering event. As Sakhalin has fallen before these guys start to take Mongolia, these guys are Mongolia. Manchuria. I'm going to call these guys Manchuria. Before Yellow River Valley starts to take Manchuria as an actual threat, and Japan is actually losing ground now, but forces from Hokkaido are launched into Sakhalin as they start invading into these guys' territory. And remember, this used to be Yellow River Valley's territory, so okay, now you can sort of see the difference between their actual territory and the territory they're invading, which is what I wanted. And Yellow River Valley is giving Manchuria like a beating, but they kind of are withdrawing a lot of their forces from Japan. And once the capital is retaken, a major thing happens in the north, which is yet another rebellion, as they kind of fully take the rest of Japan besides Hokkaido. And at this point, Hokkaido will declare their independence from Yellow River Valley and Japan, forming the country of Hokkaido that was here at the beginning of the episode, which will also take Sakhalin, which allows for this land to fall back into the hands of Manchuria. And at this point, the Third Crusade is a total failure at this point, let's be honest. The only thing they've done is separate Hokkaido from Japan. But although Hokkaido was a theocracy at the beginning of this episode, they're refounded as a monarchy. So even that wasn't successful. As Yellow River Valley is starting to lose a lot of territory over here. And Japan relaunches an invasion of Korea that is successful in the fact that Korea is fully taken and just falls. I previously have said that Japan would be able to take Korea on their own. They also retake these islands and threaten Yangtze, and Yangtze backs down. All of a sudden, these people start being forcibly converted to this religion, like so. And yeah, so the Third Crusade is the Third Crusade is entirely a disaster. Eventually, Yellow River Valley will sign peace, so let's see what that looks like. They just lose a little bit of territory because they're still a very powerful country who would have rejected anything more. Okay, let's be done with East Asia. We've been there for a ridiculous amount of time this episode. But before we leave that region of the world, some stuff is going to happen as Indonesia is expanding their territory or their explored land. This is not China doing this. China's kind of satisfied with what they already have. It's the Indonesian country. And they'll explore about halfway into New Guinea, except not really. And they won't colonize that much of it. There's like a dividing line somewhere around here that divides like Indonesia. Tectonically, there's two separate plates here or something, I don't remember. So they'll go up to that line, which I think is around here, and they'll stop. So Indonesia is actually becoming a very strong country that will probably help their religious brethren despite not being a theocracy. As in the next episode, it seems like the orange religion and the dark green religion are going to go to war with each other. In India, this brown country was already collapsing, and now they have fully collapsed. But the former theocratic leader of this country has basically said, hey, our two sects of this religion aren't really that different. And he kind of formally merges the two religions together into one, which just leaves the dark brown religion in Yemen and kind of angers Yemen. But he will leave his country to, I'm going to call these guys Southern India, and these guys will be Sri Lanka, just for simplicity's sake. So, yeah, that's that. In the Horn of Africa, the dictator, so there's been 3 dictators of Ethiopia at this point, probably. No, it's been a dictatorship for about 200 years. Yeah, it says it's been a dictatorship for about 200 years. It's around the year 1050, maybe. Actually, it's probably around the episode will end in the year 1100, but right now it's around the year 1050. And in the year 1050, there will be kind of a religious revival in Ethiopia that'll make them not be a dictatorship anymore. And at this point, Ethiopia will basically criticize the leaders of Eritrea for still being a dictatorship, and they will go to war with the leaders of Eritrea. And I realize a lot of countries are getting disappeared in this episode, but besides Eritrea, none of them have been very important to the series. So spoiler alert, Eritrea is actually going to be fully annexed into Ethiopia. So yeah, I don't need to show the war, you know how it's going to end. But yeah, Eritrea is erased from the map by the new Ethiopian Restoration, as they call it themselves. However, speaking of dictatorships, we just have one of the most disheartening events in the world take place, as the democracy over here will have a dictator elected to power. So the ideology of dictatorship is still alive and well. They still claim to be a democracy, which is why I'm keeping the northern half of it as a democracy. And in fact, they will be doing some expansion, but they are also drastically increasing the size of their military. And it seems in the next episode, they might try to do something a little bit dastardly. The rest of the Scandinavian peninsula will have been discovered, and a lot of people are going to flee the new dictatorship and found their own country in Scandinavia. And this country I will call Norway, maybe. I'm just going to call it Scandinavia because it's both Norway and Sweden. And I know Denmark's part of Scandinavia, but whatever. And actually, there's enough people fleeing to create 5 major cities. There's probably about 3 million people who flee, and the threshold for a major city is only about 300,000. So that means half of these people are living in rural areas, which is, I think, a good ratio for now. In real life, it's like 75% of people live in cities around by now, but at this point, I feel like 50% is still a pretty urbanized country. And their capital will be the closest one to the dictatorship, which is kind of dangerous, but whatever. Obviously, these guys will be a democracy. In other news, the monarchy over here has expanded itself quite greatly, as has Russia expanded. No new cities are going to pop up in either of these countries, but Russia has expanded all the way to the Arctic Circle. They've not really explored past the Urals yet, which is interesting. So the Urals is the area that's explored but not colonized by Russia, or we're just going to say that it is. And the area to the west of the Urals is fully colonized. The area to the east is neither explored nor colonized. So Siberia hasn't really been explored yet, but I think in the next episode, I mean, there's a lot of things I say I'm going to do in the next episode I'm probably not going to do. But yeah, okay. And for now, I'm going to end the episode here. There's a lot of stuff I would like to do at some point, but I think this episode's long enough. So thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye.